What a joy to be here with you in real life. What a joy to be with friends, basically, because you two, your history goes back to college, to friendship, to being in business together previously with asset management first in mind, but now it's mission-driven. And Katie, tell us a little bit about why now? Why decide to launch this so focused on what is an existential crisis in many people's eyes?
Well, and I think that's exactly the point. It is an existential crisis. And it's a point in time in sort of our history collectively where it's time to take action. And so when Tom and I were thinking about what to do in our next phase of our life, we really felt we were compelled to bring our histories, our past actions together and start a new kind of investment firm, Galvanize Climate Solutions.
I mean, just to go through history, I mean, extraordinary wealth that you've built for others with assets under management. I mean, most successful woman to have ever really founded her own asset management shop. You're thinking about family offices, you're thinking about high net worth individuals in previous lives. But Tom, tell us a little bit about the overarching vision now. Who are you serving and what really is the amount of money and investment you need to shift?
Well, the idea behind Galvanize Climate Solutions is to bring the power of capitalism to solutions for the climate crisis. Very simply, we're at the execution phase, and that really requires investments across the economy. I mean, the estimates are $4 trillion per year, but I almost think that's the wrong way to think about it, because we expect that every company in every industry is going to have to take climate into account all the time. So if you're a car company, you're going to be a climate company. If you're a clothing company, you're going to be a climate company. And in fact, what we're really going to have is climate being part of decision-making in the guts of the economy, you know, in real time,
and
everywhere.
Being forced by regulation, being forced by their own, well, the people that they answer to, whether it be their consumers, their employees. What's driving those companies to make those, being forced to become climate companies?
Well, first of all, we're going to be creating businesses that win in the marketplace. Now, there are going to ultimately be measurement across society about emissions.
Yeah.
And that is going to be something that people are going to have to understand and figure into their supply chains and figure into really all parts of their business. It's going to be measurement driven, but it's going to be about companies winning in the marketplace. That is actually how this change is going to take place. And that's why the power of capitalism is so strong, because capitalism scales across the world.
And what's interesting about your method of capitalism is that you're not just thinking, okay, growth venture, you're not just thinking, oh, equities, you're not just thinking real estate, you're thinking actually all of these things. Why bring together such a whole holistic look at how to allocate money?
We think it needs to be this multi-pronged approach because this is actually a system-wide, an economy-wide challenge. And we need to be able to attack it from all parts of the economy, all parts of the capital stack of companies. And so we really felt it was important to have the opportunity to be looking at companies and solutions and investment solutions across a whole range of areas.
Before we dig into some of those solutions, we were just talking off stage about this measurement conundrum. Katie, you've spoken with David Rubenstein from Bloomberg before, and you were talking about how you'd looked at crypto for some of your focus, the family offices that you serve, the clients that you have. Is blockchain the answer to measurement? Tom, are you seeing regions or thought leadership in the way that actually we bring transparency to that?
Well, I think that different technologies are going to be critical to measurement, but actually the critical part about measurement is going to get the information. That people, you know, there's obviously a big effort going on at the SEC to require different climate disclosures by companies. But there's also, in the EU, there are going to be rules about border adjustments, and they're going to start charging for emissions. What that means is people are going to have to measure. They're no longer going to be able to say, we don't know the answer to that question, it's too hard to get. You know, last night, Katie and I were talking to Lisa Jackson from Apple. And by 2030, they are going to have an ability to show the carbon footprint of every single product. That's what it's going to take, so that when people understand when they're buying a product By 2030, they'll be carbon neutral. But you have to know, what is the carbon footprint of this shirt? And as an economy, how are we actually strategically going to manage down emissions unless we know what the emissions are, where they're coming from, and then what the alternatives are in terms of running that supply chain?
And I think the impetus of that measurement is part policy, but it's not exclusively. Customers are demanding change. Customers are demanding that companies make change. Employees of companies are wanting to see that the organizations which they work for are actually taking steps in the right direction. So it's more than just a policy-driven response. It's a system-wide. There is a real change at this point in time that is driving this momentum.
It's stakeholders of all your types.
Of all types.
And therefore, when you're thinking of driving change with your capital right now, I think of real estate. What opportunities have you seen there to really start to make big impact on how much the building that we currently sit in is offsetting the climate impact that it's had in the past?
Historically, that's been an area that has been slow to make the investments needed to decarbonize. And in fact, there actually is the opportunity, we believe, to make accretive investments that is not concessionary. In fact, everything that we're doing as we're looking at investment strategies, and again, marshaling the power of capital to motivate change, is about generating compelling returns, interesting investment returns, because that is actually the proof point of success and will bring in, we believe, additional capital system-wide.
So therefore, Tom, how do you assess an investment opportunity? Because I think in a way, impact became a misnomer. People started to think, oh, it just meant that you were putting money to work, but you didn't always think of profitability. No, you can have both. How are you ensuring that you get best-in-class returns at the same time as best-in-class rewards from a climate perspective?
Well, first of all, we believe that this crisis is the opportunity, that is a huge wind at the back of investment returns for people who are taking into account climate impact. It is absolutely not concessionary. It's the opposite. It's a huge opportunity. But when we think about a specific investment, we have impact officers in the investment committee to make sure that, in fact, it has positive climate impact of material amounts. Having said that, if it doesn't show good returns, we absolutely won't do it on a financial basis, period. And for very good reason. If you're thinking about a global problem, then you need something that has a big impact. You need something that is not irrelevant. And if it doesn't have really good returns, if there isn't really good growth in it, if there isn't scalability, it's not relevant. But if there are those things, you will also get very good investment returns. So there is no contradiction here. You know, when we're looking at this, we absolutely want to get best-in-class returns. No question about it. And everybody who works here, like Katie and like me, are professional investors who've lived on numbers and returns. But having said that, we will, if you came in, I said this a year ago, if someone came in and said, we have a crypto investment that makes 100 times your money, it's guaranteed, do you want to do it? And if it doesn't have a climate impact, no.
What's interesting is the timing of all of this, because we all felt there was a lot of talk. There was even some walk prior to COVID, prior to supply chain disruption, prior to then suddenly there being what seemed to be an energy crisis and a refocusing on needing to have oil, gas, natural resources. The people you're talking to, Katie, did they feel that that was a blip? Was that something that's necessary? How do you feel people are talking about the commitment to being climate focused in our economic realities?
You know, I think that there is a widespread recognition that we are in a time of dramatic and radical transition across our energy system. There's debates about the speed, there's debates about the exact areas, but it is happening, and it's a massive disruption. And investors are drawn to areas of massive disruption because it's out of that huge chaos and change where there's big winners, there's going to be big losers, and there's all in between. Talking about it as an investment opportunity, people see that, I mean, this might be the opportunity of our lifetime from an investment perspective, and to be part of solutions. And so that's really, I think, what is the dual hook, if you will, in terms of speaking with investors across the range, whether it be people in the endowment community, people in family offices, and large institutional pools of capital. Pension capital is very interested in that solution-oriented mindset.
But Carolyn, can I just make a point? Look, we're all used as investors to looking at the ideas about industries competing with each other, new technologies coming in, and the need for new technologies to win in the marketplace. Okay, absolutely true, and we accept that fully. But there's something else going on here too, because there's another accounting taking place in the natural world every day in real time. And that is changing things. So if you go back 10 years and you look at where we were and where it was in people's consciousness, completely different. You go forward 10 years, we will be in a very different place in the natural world that will be demanding very different things from the businesses and peoples and governments of this world. And that is going to be the backdrop for every economic decision going forward. And so there's always this assumption that the status quo is going to stay. But in the case of the natural world, we can see extremely strong trends that suggest that that is a 0% probability. That in fact, the natural world is changing, and we get reports from the scientists every single day, every single week. And that is going to drive the need for economic change, for the growth in the kinds of businesses I'm talking about, that is going to be essential and urgent. And I think we see it now, but it is something that is only going to become more apparent over the next 10 years.
Katie, many would say it takes generational change. I mean, we think about the power that social media, that technology has had on this. I mean, by the way, hashtag Bloomberg Green if you want to be having a conversation about this online. But I'm interested in whether or not the people you're speaking to who have managed money at your level are all on the same program, or whether it's the companies, the founders in the venture part of your business that are more in line with your way of thinking.
There's no question that younger generations feel this more acutely. But there's many people of even our generation that care about it and are on board. So, and I think that it's apparent in a number of different ways. It's apparent in the way people thinking about allocating capital. It's really apparent in terms of, as we have been building Galvanize, the people that want to come to join us. Our colleagues are coming from all types of established firms, and one of the really common themes is they want to be part of a winning team. They really want to be aligned with a solution-oriented, a climate solution-oriented organization. So I think that mission alignment of what people want to do with their life, how they want to allocate their time and their personal resources, is quite, it's a deep vein of kind of motivation that we're seeing sort of across all generations. I
mean, I was just reading a story by Bloomberg of an ex-Goldman executive who managed to lure over to help retrofit all the real estate, to analyze where that capital is best deployed to do that. Is that the most obvious area of real estate for you at the moment, Tom? What other key areas of capital deployment you're seeing that's really exciting you to upend real estate, to upend venture, to upend equity investment that you're making?
Well, I mean, if you look at climate, you know, people tend to break down the verticals of climate into 6 places, which are, you know, this is not wisdom, this is just how people characterize things. And it's sort of electricity, transportation, agriculture. I'm actually incredibly interested in the changes that have to come in agriculture, manufacturing, the built environment, and then the ability to sequester carbon. Those are all huge verticals that have multiple facets, multiple industries within them where we need radical change. And so every one of those, to me, if we have something that will radically change that, that is a chance for a huge company. But it's very dependent on the people. I mean, when you look at, I mean, it's funny, but people tend to think that technology drives businesses, and technology is a huge driver of businesses. But human beings drive businesses. I mean, we're sitting here at a Bloomberg Summit. I think Michael Bloomberg had a big impact on, say, Bloomberg. That's not a fluke. The understanding the humans involved is underestimated in terms of outcomes and actual accomplishment and productivity. And that is something, when you look across those 6 verticals, Joe Sumberg, who's the person from Goldberg, really wanted to lead the decarbonization of the built environment. And we had to convince him we were good partners for him, but we didn't have to convince him that that was the right thing to do, because that's what he wanted to do with his life. And that's what Katie's referring to. People who think we're in a crisis and I can marry my professional life with the values that I think about when I wake up in the morning and look at my family. That's what's going on.
Let's talk about that convincing. Your CVs, your backgrounds, the money you've raised, the money you've allocated successfully speak volumes. But Katie, how do you set Galvanize apart from some of the other very worthy institutions and financial operations that are setting up that want to make change too? How do you get the right talent? What do you say about your institution?
We have built something that is different than any other organization. And it's different by the focus on climate. It's different on the fact that we have brought together, and we recognize this is a problem that spans a whole variety of disciplines, and we have brought together credible expertise on the investment side, as we've alluded to. We also have on science, technology, measurement, impact. We view this all as an integrated part, a necessarily integrated part of the solution. And that's different.
Politics, Tom. You know, you played a big role in that in 2020, but you're someone who commits capital to politics. We think about the backlash almost that's happened in politics to ESG. How do you counter that? How are you navigating that conversation so that it doesn't become a bipartisan issue?
You mean a partisan issue?
Well said, yeah.
Well, first of all, it is a partisan issue, but it's not a partisan issue with the voters. If you go to Republican voters, depending on how you ask the question, 57 to 75% of registered Republicans want a robust climate response from the US government. That it's really not about that. What we're seeing is a pushback from businesses, from institutional businesses who are worried that in fact different new industries are going to come in and outcompete them, which if they can, that's called capitalism. And what we're doing is called capitalism. It's investing money to make money, to provide solutions for people. That is exactly the system that scales in this world, which we will make no apologies for, and which we believe will win in the marketplace. So when people say to us, what are we doing? We are very straightforwardly following the dictates of capitalism to win in the marketplace and drive changes that are necessary. That's exactly what we're doing. And I think if you aren't for doing that, if you want to legislate the kind of investments that are making, that is not called capitalism. And that is something completely different. That is some sort of performative politics. And we're absolutely straightforwardly market people who believe that that's where we will win.
And therefore, does that market mindset win in all geographies? Are you thinking, Katie, are you thinking outside of the US? Are you thinking what next industries, what areas can you bolt on to VC, to equity, to real estate?
Yes, we think that it's important across geographies. We're focused initially in North America, Europe, but it is important. I mean, the problem is global, and we very much want to be part of that global solution. Also, each part of the capital markets has a role to play, whether it be public equities, whether it be credit, whether it be real estate, whether it be growth capital and venture capital, across the spectrum, we see sort of this opportunity and need. And so we want to be part of it across the spectrum.
I don't want to be partisan about what car you drive. But I hear you were in the market for an EV, Tom, and you were finding it very hard to get one. You finally found one, managed to drive it?
So I do drive an electric Mustang.
You wanted it to be
It's
fun,
almost
right?
ridiculously fast, let me say. And I mean, just saying, look, I think at some level, human beings in our society are going to have, across the board, are going to have to buy into this change. Because this is an all of society change. And I think that we can't win fighting ourselves on this. I think we have to come together on this, and I think it's a huge opportunity for Americans to win together. And that's exactly how I see this, is that this is a real chance for us, both from an economic, but from a political and kind of the meaning of being an American. I think this is a huge chance for us. And I'm very excited, and I wanted to buy a car that reflected that.
That was fun. This can be important and impactful.
Oh, that. It's
but
fun
it can
to drive
also,
a fast car.
Can also be energizing and fun. And this was a great conversation. I really thank you for it. A great start to this summit. We appreciate it. Katie Bull,
Thank you.
Talon Steyer, thank you.
Caroline.
Please give it up to an amazing panel.